What do you accept about yourself? What do you deny? Do you think you're above the moral implications of others? Or do you see yourself among society's worst? No. You're a good person, right? Of course you are. But what if you're wrong? Carl Jung, a Swiss psychiatrist from the mid-20th century, once coined the idea that all people have a shadow self. For all the actions you've ever taken, there's always been a darker side of your inner consciousness. Things about yourself that you don't like, or that you believe no one else would like, are pushed deep down into your unconscious psyche. You have thoughts and capabilities, both good and evil, hidden until they one day present themselves. Those thoughts are those of your shadow self. The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality, for no one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort. To become conscious of it involves recognizing the dark aspects of the personality as present and real. This act is the essential condition for any kind of self-knowledge. This concept is demonstrated perfectly, time and time again in Silenthill, an ever-evolving franchise. Each entry in its series is episodic, with the only overarching theme connecting all but four is that they take place in a town of the same name. As development teams changed over the years, the series lost its overall focus, with most fans only ever reminiscing about the original 4 titles. But out of those 4, none stick out more than Silenthill 2. A game about self-discovery, self-acceptance, and deep psychological torture. As a young adult, I couldn't begin to comprehend the depth of thought put into the plot or characters. I simply looked at it as a good game, but it's the type of which you can only understand through multiple playthroughs, and even then, there may still be things you missed. From this point onward, there will be spoilers for the game in its entirety, so if you've never experienced the nightmare, now's your chance to leave. So let's talk about Silenthill 2. Unfortunately, there can be no doubt that man is, on the whole, less good than he imagines himself or wants to be. Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. If you don't know, Silenthill is a resort town. For reasons unknown, the residents abandoned it and all of their belongings. Stores sit still, lined with inventory, and cars stay parked forever on its streets. Everything was left to rot. Back in its occupancy, James and his wife Mary once visited the resort, deeming the whole town as their special place.
Are you taping again? Come on. I don't know why, but I just love it here. It's so peaceful. You know what I heard? This whole area used to be a sacred place. I think I can see why. It's too bad we have to leave. Please promise you'll take me again, James.
Mary was sick, stricken with an unknown disease that eventually claimed her life. 3 years had gone by, and suddenly James receives a letter in the mail from Mary, claiming that she's waiting for him. Waiting in their special place. Certain that no one else could know what that meant, James sets out to find her, only instead to find the town shrouded in a thick fog and populated by monsters. Along his journey, James encounters 4 other people, all of whom are connected through different forms of trauma. Angela, Eddie, Laura, and Maria. Each character summoned by the town appear normal and cognizant of their actions upon first meeting. Angela is found beside a gravestone and gives us directions. Eddie is found vomiting in a toilet because he can't stand the sight of a dead body. Laura, who's supposed to symbolize innocence, is just kind of an asshole.
Ow!
Ha.
Hey, wait!
And Maria is immediately flirtatious upon meeting us. But something about her feels off. She's the only character who ever appears in a good mood, and the only one who actively wants to follow and be protected by James. It's as though she knows more than she lets on, which is even further enforced by the fact that she looks exactly like Mary. Carl Jung determined that the human psyche is split into 3 categories: the personal conscious, the personal unconscious, and the collective unconscious, or in other words, what you know, what you've forgotten or repressed, and what similarities everyone experiences. That is what Silenthill is. The amalgamation of everyone's collective unconscious. All who enter perceive the town differently, but as a whole they can all agree they've been subjected to their own personal hell. Eddie sees an entire town of people laughing at him, bullying and mocking him. At first he denies any involvement with the dead bodies we gradually find, but as we progressively encounter Eddie, he becomes more and more detached from his own sanity. His shadow self gradually begins to take over.
Killing a person ain't no big deal. Just put the gun to their head, pow!
In our final encounter, he snaps while surrounded by bodies. Although I should mention, its creator confirmed that Eddie hasn't killed anyone aside from his bully's dog. They're all illusions made by the town, but it doesn't matter. To Eddie, they're real.
Well, maybe he was right. Maybe I am nothing but a fat, disgusting piece of shit. But you know what? It doesn't matter if you're smart, dumb, ugly, pretty. It's all the same once you're dead.
And a corpse can't laugh.
Seeing death as the only equalizer, his shadow takes over, and for the first time in reality, he attempts to take a real human life, forcing us to kill him in self-defense.
Eddie? Eddie? I killed a human being. A human being.
Angela is perhaps the most tragic character I've ever encountered in a video game. She's a victim of both sexual and physical abuse. While it's never said out loud who her abuser was, it's heavily implied, as well as confirmed to be not only her father, but also her brother. She jumps in fear every time James comes near her. She's overly apologetic, and when we accidentally intrude on her own personal hell, we're met with some pretty disturbing imagery.
Daddy, please don't!
23 cylindrical rods moving in and out of walls made of flesh, accompanied by the statement,
I know what you're up to. It's always the same. You're only after one thing.
No, that's not true at all.
You don't have to lie. Go ahead and say it. Or you could just force me. Beat me up like he always did.
When we first met Angela, she stated she was in search of her mother, her one last cling to life. But by the end, she never finds her. She only realizes the truth. Not even her own mother had cared enough to stop them.
Thank you for saving me. But I wish you hadn't. Even Mama said it. I deserved what happened.
No, Angela, that's wrong.
For her, life was a living hell. Her personal consciousness could only perceive Silenthill as a town on fire.
You see it too. For me, it's always like this.
She walks off and is never seen again. Laura is the only character without any moral corruptions. She acts hostile towards James throughout the plot, but not out of maliciousness. She and Mary met in the hospital and bonded throughout their stay. Why she was hospitalized is never revealed, but it's clear that she's come to Silenthill in search of Mary, just the same as James. The only difference is that because of her innocence, she doesn't see any of the monsters or projections created by the town. What she sees is nothing more than fog and forgotten structures. Maria, on the other hand, is a different story entirely. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. She's a figment of James's imagination, portrayed as a sexier, more flirtatious version of his late wife. She has Mary's face and memories, but everything else is completely fabricated. In James's personal unconscious, this is how he wanted Mary to be, and thus, this is how Silenthill made her. However, given that she has her own sub-scenario before even meeting James, it's proven that she has independent thoughts, forcing the character down a spiral of rotating emotions, cold and detached one moment, while sincere and pleasant the next. This back and forth was intended to confuse the player as to who James is really talking to, because he himself is not sure.
Do I look like your girlfriend?
What are you looking at? Get the hell out of here! Anyway! What do you mean, anyway? You don't sound very happy to see me.
James, honey, did something happen to you? After we got separated in that long hallway?
Stay with me! Don't ever leave me alone! You're dead soon anyway.
Are you confusing me with someone else? I don't look like a ghost, do I?
Are you still here? I told you to go! You're deaf! Don't come back!
You were always so forgetful. Remember that time in the hotel?
How do you know about that? Aren't you Maria?
I'm not your Mary.
Less about me, aren't you?
So, you're Maria?
I am. If you want me to be.
All I want from you is an answer.
Maybe today, maybe tomorrow. It'd be easier if they'd just kill me.
It doesn't matter who I am. I'm here for you, James. See? I'm real. Don't you want to touch me?
I don't know.
Each time we encounter her, she's experiencing a different emotional roller coaster. Not only does this serve to confuse James, but to illustrate the mood swings and anxiety experienced by Mary, the way James remembers.
James! Wait! Please don't go! Stay with me! Don't leave me alone! I didn't mean what I said! Please, James! Tell me I'll be okay! Tell me I'm not going to die! Help me!
James himself is emotionally detached from everything and everyone around him. He encounters dead bodies, monsters representative of his own psyche, and is even forced to take a human's life. And yet we never see him dwell on any of these things for more than a second. The woman of his dreams runs into his arms crying and afraid, and he does almost nothing to comfort her. All that matters is finding Mary. All that matters is finding the truth. James's character was inspired in part by Crime and Punishment, a novel written in 1866 by Fyodor Dostoevsky. It entails the story of Rodion Raskolnikov, a destitute man who plans to murder an old pawnbroker. Stealing her valuables to free himself of poverty, he justifies the crime with the philosophy that one death isn't much of a price to pay for financial freedom. The rest of the book details the downward spiral of his mentality, struggling to cope with his deeds both inwardly and externally. Throughout Silent Hill 2, we're forced to watch an abstract embodiment of James's personal and conscious murder Maria over and over and over again until James remembers.
Mary's gone. She's dead.
Liar, that's a lie!
No, that's not true.
She died because she was sick?
No, I killed her.
His justification for the crime was to end his wife's suffering and take back his life. But in reality, both of their actions go unjustified. Raskolnikov hides the valuables to evade police suspicion and continues to live in poverty, only now with added anxiety. And James represses the memory so deeply that he forgets about it entirely, to the point where he needed a manifestation of his wife to be repeatedly killed in front of him until he remembered. James never mentions relationships or achievements from his life after the fact. He only dwells on the past. They both got away with their crimes, and were both tortured for it by their own shadows. That's the truth. But after James remembers, the question is, how does it all end? There are 3 possible endings. 7 total if you're going for the completionist run, but 3 main possibilities you can get on your first playthrough. Leave, Maria, and In Water. The ending you get is solely based on how you played the game, making it tailored to the player's subconscious.
The truth is, I hated you. I wanted you out of the way. I wanted my life back.
James, if that were true, then why do you look so sad?
In the Leave ending, James accepts the reality of what he did. He forgives himself, as he knows that's truly what Mary would have wanted. The final shot portrays James leaving a cemetery with Laura, symbolic of his leaving Mary behind. Accompanied by the only other person that knew her, it's speculated that he adopts Laura, but it's left to the player's interpretation. It's unknown what happens to her in the other 2 endings.
You killed Mary again?
That wasn't Mary. Mary's gone. That was just something Maria? Maria?
What, James?
I want you. I want you with me.
Are you sure?
Come on. Let's get out of here.
What about Mary?
It's okay. I have you.
In Maria's ending, James rejects the truth and accepts the apparition given to him by the town. Despite her being a more perfect version of Mary, they still share similarities. James's shadow self knows the truth, that he killed Mary because of her sickness. And that same dark side would be more than willing to kill again.
You'd better do something about that cough. Now I understand the real reason I came to this town. I wonder, what was I afraid of? Without you, Mary, I've got nothing. Now we can be together.
In Water is the most agreed upon canonical ending, even favored by the creators. James came to Silenthill to kill himself, and there's loads of visual evidence supporting that statement. He couldn't cope with the guilt, and so he meets his shadow self, and just like all the others, his shadow wins. Silent Hill 2 will stand the test of time, not only from a storytelling perspective, but a psychological one as well. It's one of those games that prove the medium can be an art form, because after all, the whole story is just one long look in the mirror. This was my comfort game for a long time growing up. There's theories upon theories and hundreds of videos diving into the many layers it has to offer. I could talk about it forever, but I'll leave you with this one last thought. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Thanks for watching, stay hydrated, and I'll see you in the next one.